Welcome to It's Still Happening, the only podcast created to inspire and support women who are the first in their families to break generational patterns, raise the bar, and create the life you desire and deserve through ancestral healing. I'm your host, Ash Johns. I'm an author, guide, and creative. And what I know for sure is we all have generational debris and generational superpowers within us that impact who we are, how we show up, and the quality of our lives. It's my hope that you both clear and connect with yours, experience the transformation that naturally flows as a result, and step into your power and leadership as a creational woman modeling what's possible when we heal and grow from our roots. If you've always felt called to walk your own path in life and are ready to create a ripple effect in your world, you're in perfect company. And if you've been desiring to break barriers and know that the past, present, and future are always intertwined, you found this podcast in divine timing. This is your invitation to pull up a chair and get out your notebook as I teach lessons learned and insights emerging from walking my own path of freedom. I hope to inspire you to do the same. Let's get into today's episode. All right, so here we are. Welcome to the first episode of Season 3, the final and forever season of It's Still Happening. I'm so excited for this episode, y'all. And I'm excited because I am celebrating how much ease and joy and fun and creativity and inspiration I am experiencing in creating this season, or rather me coming back to the podcast and creating with these energies feels amazing to me because I don't think I felt this way in previous seasons of the podcast. It almost feels like I'm arriving or I am learning how to walk in the room and share with a different presence. And actually, wow, that's a good point, Ash. Okay, we're already veering off, but I do have an outline, so hang with me, y'all. But it's interesting that I would say it feels like I'm walking in the room with more presence with kicking off this new format of the podcast because my word for the year for 2023 is presence. So, wow. Okay. Again, as I said, y'all are witnessing me in the evolution of my life right now. I am pulling back the curtains. I am communicating, teaching, sharing, breaking down all the things associated with embodying your own ancestral healing journey as what I'm saying, a creational woman, because I know I'm very creative. And I know we as women create our experiences. We're literally meant to create. And even if you're not a woman and you're listening to the podcast, you're also welcome here, or you don't identify as a woman or you're queer or whatever. Like, we're not getting caught up in all the labels. Everyone who is here is welcome here, and you're supposed to be here because you're called to be here, and you are. So that's just that. But we all have creational energies. We all are creational beings. So I'm really excited about this vibe that I'm working with, and it just felt right to actually start this first episode, which is actually episode 19. But it felt right to piggyback off of the theme of the trailer. And the reason why is I had the most interesting experience, y'all. I have a weekly date with one of my homegirls. She is an amazing coach. She does totally different work, but it's also related work. It's really amazing. And we were chit-chatting. We often hold space for each other and kind of talk about life and such. And also the current initiations and transformations we're going through. And some of her reflections back to me this week is exactly what I had outlined for this episode, is exactly what I had already recorded in the trailer. So if there is no other confirmation that you are in alignment, I don't know what is, especially since I hadn't spoken with her in almost 2 weeks. So she didn't know some of the developments or the new changes in my life. And it just felt amazing. Like there's, to me, the feeling of confirmation and affirmation that is already being embodied, not like, oh, I was thinking about that or I was considering it, but it's like I've already or you've already made the decision. And then someone else comes up and says the exact same thing, verbatim, word for word. And you're like, wow, thank you, God. Like, thank you, spirits. Thank you, higher self. That's exactly what I needed. So pay attention to moments like that and don't shrug it off as just excitement and happenstance. Like, really realize that the universe, your spirits, your higher self are surrounding you with people who want to affirm that you are, in fact, walking and living in your path, as I am. So we're piggybacking off of the energy of the trailer. It felt right to kick off with the first episode of me coming back to the podcast in this topic of surrendering to yourself, this topic of initiating yourself or being initiated into a new chapter and a new identity in your life. And I know this, that not only am I going through this right now in my life, but I know a lot of people who are, not just clients, I'm saying on the internet and in the world. For one, the predictions of 2023 was that this was going to be a year of huge, tumultuous, and great change. And usually, when people say huge and tumultuous and like massive change, we all start to like clench and dig our heels in the sand or the ground a little bit more. But to me, the energy that I feel is like an overhaul. You know, we have gone through so much over these last couple years, and now it's like we get to embody the transformations that we've been longing for or working at with greater ease, but with way more impact this year. It's like 2019, most of us had pretty tough years. 2020, it took us all out. 2021, we were in aftershock and feeling the after waves of such a shock. In 2022, we're like, okay, is there any rubble here that I can pick up? Like, what am I doing? And now 2023, it's like, all right, the change is in place. You are getting comfortable in this or finding how it feels to fit yourself into this new way of being. And at least that's my experience, and that's what I'm seeing. I've been seeing a lot of entrepreneurs online talking about how they're leaving their businesses. They had burnout, they're on a sabbatical, they're revamping their businesses, they've become a mother, they've quit the business, like all these changes to how we're living, new chapters in life, and also new identities. And so, because I'm in one myself, and I know that so many of us are in a similar process, it felt right to kick off the refresh, the reemergence of the podcast with this theme. So, a little bit more as to why this is important. And this is where the teaching starts to come. So if this is your first time listening to It's Still Happening podcast, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. I always teach by living. I always teach things that I'm currently living or have lived through. And I will also sprinkle in some anecdotes and experiences from clients over the years. And I've been doing this work and being a healer all my life, but specifically for the last 8 years. So I say that to say, if you do not have a notebook, a pen, a paper, your phone out to record notes or something like that, like do so now, like just press pause, because I get into the vibe, spirit starts to flow, and before you know it, some nuggets of truth are dropping and you're like, oh my God, what did she say? So just prepare yourself right now, because we're diving in, we're climbing in, and I know it's going to be really good because I feel incredibly calm and so deeply supported right now. So another reason why this idea of really orienting ourselves in the experience of surrendering when we are in a new initiatory process for a new chapter in life and for a new identity is two things. Most times we don't even realize we're in an initiation. We don't. We're so in the minutia and in the day-to-day and in the struggle or the uncomfortability that we're constantly avoiding or running away from, or completely upside down and inside out, that we can't orient ourselves and say, oh, I'm actually in an initiation journey. I need to pay attention. Even though this might feel foreign to me or uncomfortable to me, this is an important time in my life that I need to pay attention to and be present in. So that's one. I want to draw our attention to the fact that a lot of times we just don't even realize it because we're experiencing it. And I don't even know if that is to be reverse engineered or changed. I just want to bring more awareness into it. I find that when I accept that I am in an initiatory process, I open up to it more. It becomes medicine, even more medicine. Instead of me resisting the medicine, I actually open my throat and receive it. And it starts to even taste good. Like, I have a Chinese medicine doctor, and whenever she prescribes me like a new herb, it tastes like dirt, crap, sand shit. Okay. But after I'm like, okay, I need to take this. It's going to support me. Like, she's going to put me on this for the next 3 months. Like this, like powdery, they call it a tea, but it's like powder dust, sandpaper. What's that stuff when you do sanding in the house? And like, it's like that, like dry plaster dust. Like that's how I promise to God. Anyway, over time, I've actually started liking the flavor. Over time, I've opened up that this medicine is good for me because I've realized where I'm at and why I'm doing it, right? So one of the reasons why this is important is we don't always realize we're in an initiation. And another reason is I believe that we use the word initiation too fucking much. Like every time, and this is really kind of aimed at, no disrespect, this is kind of aimed at the spiritual world and the spiritual community. And I love us. Like we are so deep. I know that I am super spiritual, so I'm a part of this. I'm labeling stuff all the time. That's a sign, you know what I mean? But like we're so quick to say, I'm in an initiation, I'm in an initiation, but we don't really embody or like understand the gravity of being in an initiation that we become so flippant with it. And I want to bring some more reverence and seriousness and again, presence to what an initiation is and being initiated and moving through an initiatory process, right? Because it seems to be losing its meaning. So, of course, being the little wordsmith that I am sometimes, or rather I was as a kid, I had to go and refresh my memory on the actual definition of initiation instead of like the colloquialism of it or the cultural reference to it. And good old Google, I don't even know if it was Webster or whatever, the Oxford Dictionary, but it essentially says that initiation is a process of undergoing an expansion, usually towards higher levels of consciousness, right? But you can initiate into lower levels of consciousness if you're into that kind of work, but that's a different podcast, okay? Um, Initiation is the act or an instance of initiating, which means that you're starting something new. It is the process of being initiating. So you are in process. It is an actual marker through a rite, through a ceremony, through an ordeal, through an experience or instructions that someone has given to you, whether it's God, a member of a society or sector, an elder, a teacher, even your higher self, your soul is giving you instructions and giving you a process that you are following that's moving you forward in your consciousness and in your expansion and in your reason for being, right? Your soul and ancestral agreements and reason for being here. And it's for a specific purpose or reason, right? And then there's that you're an actual initiate, like a noun. You are becoming something new. And when you become something new, you also have to get used to embodying and walking in that newness. This is oftentimes where someone actually does go through a very formal initiation process if you're a part of a certain group or circle or whatever, you know? And yeah, you got the title or yeah, you did the things, but you still have to learn how to exist and be that person, even if you have the spirits in your home and all the things like that, right? Like there's a whole journey in that when you become something or someone new. So, what we're essentially talking about is an experience of a rite of passage where, as you move through it, you are not the same and you're discombobulated. When you complete it, you will not be the same. And as you embody it, you are also becoming a different person. Like initiation is not a one time thing, it's actually a process and a journey in and of itself. Some of those processes and journeys never end. Some of them have plateaus and milestones and markers, trade posts, if you will, that help you know that you are making progress in this initiatory journey, right? So, a lot of times these rite of passages are often recognized from other people, but other times we're initiating ourselves, or life is initiating us, right? Or spirit is initiating us, or your greater calling is initiating you. And essentially, what's happening is you are being called to see yourself differently and be confident in your new sight, in your new perspective, in your new identity, and in your new authority. Like that's the whole initiation. It means that you are now in a different position in your life, in your clan, in your community, and in your soul's path. And you have a purpose to fulfill by being in that new position, in that new role. So when I think about those of us who have decided to be generational pattern breakers, or have decided to walk our own path in life, or have decided to do ancestral healing work, or have decided to become more woke and more conscious, like all these different journeys of raising our consciousness to fulfill our soul's journey and reason for being here, it brings me back into this. I am different and I have the authority to be different. And in my difference, I'm here to offer some medicine or some insight or something to the world. So that's a whole word in and of itself. I'm sure a lot of you are pausing and rewinding back to just even thinking about initiation and the initiatory process and why it's so uncomfortable. And as I was talking to Spirit about this, They were talking about how there is essentially like two ways for an initiation to get started, which I'm simplifying, obviously. But there is initiating by someone or some people. So maybe you have a teacher, an elder, a program, a course, a degree, a certification. Yeah, like what's that? Continuing education, like all those things, whether it's an individual person, an institution, or a group of people, even your community who initiate you and essentially see you in a certain way. And then there's also self initiation, where you've decided to go off into the wilderness and learn things and try things. And it's just you and the land and the spirit, or you've gone off and done some things and put yourself in a situation based on your drive, your dreams, and your interests. And you're the initiator along with life, like you and life together. In either one of these scenarios, either the community that you're from recognizes you as change or as someone different or in a new role even before you do. So they see you as the warrior, they see you as the healer, they see you as the medicine woman, they see you as the mother or the wealthy one or the, one who's achieved whatever it is that you're out to achieve. Or you recognize yourself and eventually other people catch up and see you in that way. And this is a really important thing because I think a lot of times we think of, what was that, Karate Kid, where he had an elder mentor and he's like, young grasshopper, you know what I'm saying? And like, it's like he went through an initiatory journey and he trained and he cried and his sweat and tears and he got tested. And it was his elder who let him know he was ready. It's like we're still looking for that same experience where sometimes you do have to recognize who you are, even when the world doesn't recognize it yet, or even your family or your community, or even the internet or your clients don't recognize you yet. You have to know who you are. And the only way you're going to know who you are is if you actually walk your path and do the work and stop avoiding it and putting it off, right? Or as I was doing, going to other people's podcasts instead of growing my own podcast and my own message, which is so weird. I'm such a full circle moment because like I started off telling everybody what my opinions and my wisdom and my strengths were, and then somehow like teared off. But that's okay because I'm human and here we are. And it's also awkward the other way around when everybody else is acknowledging that you are a leader, you are a teacher, and you don't see it yourself, right? That's another way of having imposter syndrome. It's also another way of putting yourself in the position to not have any boundaries and to be taken advantage of, which I have experienced both of these at the same time, which I want to talk a little bit about today. When we don't step into our new initiation or who we truly are fully, and know that we are indeed in an initiatory process. I've just been like in an initiatory and you know what I mean? Because like it's such a tongue twister, but in an initiatory process, we start having huge energy leaks that cost us so much, y'all. It costs us our boundaries. It costs us our work. I have been stolen from so much. It's just ridiculous. Which I know some people are going to argue it's spirit work. How can, like, everyone does ancestral? How can you steal? But whatever. It's a long story for another time. We lose a lot of energy in our actual initiatory process. So we start like veering off and not completing our process. We can have energy leaks in our friendships, our relationships. We can have energy leaks because we're overgiving, because we're in between two identities. And instead of fully allowing ourselves to transmute and melt and fall all the way down from our old identity and mutate into a new one, we're kind of that in between, that we're like leaking energy and giving too much and overcompensating and over explaining. How do I know? I've done all of these things, like all of these things. And it was really interesting. Like, I had to look at what was really happening to see the level I've been operating in and the level that I'm going in. And like, shout out to one of my clients this past year who worked with me in a very special container. She, at the end of it, was like, yo, I just want to know where you're going. Like, what's going on with you, Ash? Because you feel so different than when we even started our work together. And I just, let my guard down and told her 100%. I'm like, you're right. I'm completely different. And I'm not ready to tell people that yet, but I'm glad that you can see it because you've also had access to me in a more intimate way. But the truth is, the way that I've been working is beneath the level that I'm supposed to be working in, not in skill set, but in the access, in the way I'm delivering, in the format, and how I'm interacting with people and how I'm showing up online. Because the truth is, sure, I have coach certifications, but I never was only a coach. I was never meant to be a coach. I've always been a guide, a creator, and a muse. And it's so interesting because as I've gone back to my very first website, that's the language that I had on it. And as I read the words on the page, I was like, wow, you had it then, Ash. You just maybe weren't confident. I wasn't confident in it. And I needed to like work with people and like really know that my modality worked. And I've done that now for 8 years. But 8 years ago, I had all of this on a website as it is. Isn't that wild? You know? So when you don't see the level that you're really supposed to be operating in and who you truly are becoming and who you are, you get into this weird wobble, you know? You get into a wobble. You have weird experiences where people are like copying you or like taking credit for your work or wanting to be associated with you but don't want to give credit or like all these little funky things coming up. And when this started happening, and it actually was happening for a while now, for like at least the last 3 years, but more potently in the last two. And I had to say, I really am onto something that the world hasn't quite wrapped its head around. And some people want to make sure that they're a part of it for when it blows up. You know, and there's no need to be in victimhood. There's no need to drop into fear. This is the power of who I am and the work that I do and the vision that I'm casting. And those who are quote unquote on my line or part of my network or who are drawn to work with me or be a part of my network or, you know, these things, this is what's supposed to happen in this initiatory journey, in my call to serve, in my impact, you know? And so instead of going into this place of depletion or more energy leak, it was just a time to really crawl up and sit higher on my throne and restructure some things in a way that really supports and serves everyone involved. Because these are people that I don't want to go away. They're people that I want to honor and leverage what they have gained and what they've learned in association with me, but also to do so with reverence and respect and integrity. That's important, you know? So all this to say, when you're losing friends, when family stuff is going, when colleagues is weird, you know, when you don't feel like you can get your footing, when you recognize yourself, but you kind of don't, when you know that you're powerful, important, but sometimes you don't feel like you are, you might be in a very acute initiatory process that's moving you from being and existing one way into being and existing another way. And it's more than likely a way that you've been desiring and wanting for a long ass time. And that's the kicker, because everything that's happened in my life in the last year are things that I desired the year before. It can happen that fast. At this point, I'm just manifesting everything and stepping into everything as a year season. Every year, I'm like, okay, what's this season about? What's this season about? So I really feel that it's important to appreciate the initiatory process, to recognize it, and to look at what you need in order to stay in it, to complete it, and to start to see your new identity emerging, and to know what your new identity and new gifts and what you've unlocked will require of you, and also the people who are associated with you or within your network. You will have new standards. You will have new boundaries. You will have a new message. You will have a new way of delivering the things that you have always been called to do. You'll have people leave and new people come in. You will move to new places. You will have different relationships, right? Your body shape will change. Your appetite will be different. Like, it's okay to literally step into a new identity that you do not recognize. And that in between of I don't recognize who I was and I'm still getting to know who I am, it's funky. It really is. But it's completely important to surrender all the way into who you truly are and where you're going next in your next level up, as I am. When you're initiating and stepping in and really accepting the process that you're in and who you're becoming, you will start to see things very different than when you were at your old level. What flew and you let pass or get by in the past will not fly and will not go past or be okay now. And that to me has been one of the most challenging pills to accept. There were things that I was okay with in the past that I am not okay with now. And I wouldn't say grief, because I do feel like a lot of people are talking about grief, and rightfully so. There's a lot of things to grieve. It's more so like a mind fuck where I'm like, wait, am I being petty or am I being like right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just like, that can't fly with me anymore. Like, it seems simple and small, but it is not simple and small anymore. According to who I am now, that is now unacceptable. And to be able to trust yourself and know yourself in that new existence is a powerful thing. One, it's going to make a lot of people raise their eyebrows and tilt their head. But when they feel the authenticity in you and your care and your courage and your compassion and your love for yourself and why you're saying it, they have no choice but to comply or just move out of your sphere. And either one of those are fantastic responses, let me tell you. I'm sharing this all because I want you to embrace your initiative journey instead of loathing it, and instead of fighting against yourself in it, and instead of gassing yourself through it, right? You are probably in a process just like so many of us are in a process, and you wouldn't be in that process if you were not ready for it. We make a process of transformation and change a lot harder when we're doubting ourselves and resisting it instead of falling all the way in it and emerging anew. It is for your best. It is making you into who you're called to be. And although it sucks, it is quite fascinating to see all the different facets of a transformational journey. I often think of the ancestors who came before me who didn't have the opportunity to fully initiate into their full potential, their calling, and their power. And that's what inspires me. Not because they couldn't, I should, but because I can, and I want to be an example and shine that energy back to them and have them live it through me, and by supporting me, help us experience it together. All right. So this feels really complete for today. I'm incredibly proud of myself because we had a few off-cuff moments. But for the most part, I did follow an outline. Look at that, y'all, an outline. I would love to know, obviously, how you feel about this episode, how you feel about it still happening, being back. I'd love to know, I haven't talked a lot about my business journey and what the behind the scenes is like. And if you want more of that experience or that would inspire you, please hit me up on Instagram and let me know. I'd love to see you share this episode and let other people know that It's Still Happening is back. And I have a few prompts for you to help you determine if you are in fact in an initiatory process and don't realize it. That'll also help you see yourself more clearly, take better care of yourself, and see yourself through the process inside of Access. I hope you enjoy them. Remember that you are, in fact, creating your own path of freedom for your life, for your lineage, and for your legacy. Continue doing so with love, courage, and compassion. I'll see you next episode and inside of Access. That's a wrap for this episode of It's Still Happening. Thank you for listening in and being a part of my journey. It means so much to me. Here's what's next. I'd love to know what you got out of this episode, so leave a review about it before you go. And afterwards, make sure that you rate, subscribe if you aren't already, and share this podcast on social media. You can find me on Instagram at @AshInspires. And if you'd like to connect on a deeper level, check out my website and hop on my email list. All the links you need are in the show notes. Until next time, may you continue walking your unique path of freedom with conviction, courage, and compassion. I'm sending you love wherever you are.